Godzilla El Nino.
Called a Godzilla El Nino event this winter.
With an attack by Godzilla, but
By now, you know it's coming. A monstrous phenomenon of epic proportions. Yes, this year's El Nino is one of the strongest on record, but beneath all the hype, what can we expect from it in terms of massive storms and heavy rainfall?
Remember, it's the strength of the El Nino. It doesn't necessarily tell us anything about what we're going to get this upcoming winter.
That's right. In spite of historic weather precursors, there is a chance we won't see exceptional rainfall at all this winter.
However, during those past 6 strong events of the past, every one of those has been above normal for Southern California, especially the strongest events. That's 1982-83, 1997-98. Those 2 events have been almost double or more precipitation during our winter months. There's not going to be a Godzilla coming out of the ocean and attacking California, but we're expecting more storms.
They may not have been Godzilla, but those 6 strongest El Nino events caused a lot of damage. So while there's a chance this year's El Nino will be a dry dud, the odds are in favor of wet weather. So what should you do to stay on top of the weather?
If people just stay aware of the weather this winter, we'll hear about when these big storms are coming in, and we'll be prepared, and we shouldn't be surprised by any of these storms that we anticipate coming up.
To get the latest local weather forecast and warning information, go to weather.gov/Los Angeles.
We're the local weather source, so we're only looking at 4 counties in Southwest California, from San Luis Obispo down to Los Angeles County. 24 hours a day, we're looking at those areas to provide a 7-day forecast and then any type of significant watches or warnings when we do have severe weather.
The National Weather Service has the latest satellite and Doppler radar information and issues weather-related advisories, watches, and warnings. What's the difference between a watch and a warning? During a watch, you need to be alert. During a warning, you need to take action.
A watch means there's potential for something coming up later on, so you should stay alert. So maybe 24, 48 hours in advance of a storm coming in, we see the ingredients coming together for the potential for flash flooding. So we'll put out a watch, meaning you should stay alert. We're not quite there on the confidence, so we want to look a little closer as it gets in closer to us to make a decision on what's going to happen. And then when we start to see these storms come in with the rain on the radar, and we start to see the heavier potential for rain, we may issue a warning, which means it's imminent or it's going to occur. And that's where you should take action. A warning is the worst case possible, where it's a threat to either your life or your property.
And if flooding does occur, remember this National Weather Service catchphrase:
Turn around, don't drown. TADD. So if you see flowing water across the road in front of you during a heavy rainstorm, you never want to drive into that water.
Moving water can quickly float a vehicle. In fact, it only takes about 1.5 to 2 feet of water to move a vehicle. Sadly, most flood-related deaths in the U.S. have occurred because drivers have disregarded this fact.
You don't know if the road is there. It may be scoured away, so you have no idea how deep it is. And even walking into water, people get into trouble. Only 6 inches of fast-moving water can sweep you off your feet. And then you're in a terrible position at that point and maybe need a rescue. And that's where you're putting somebody else's life in jeopardy as well to rescue you.
In case you missed it, the website to go to for the latest weather and weather-related advisories is weather.gov/Los Angeles. So far, we've heard what El Nino is, what it can do, and how to keep track of it. Coming up, we'll share some tips on how to prepare for large storms and what to do when things get ugly.
If the past is prologue, we know what to expect from this year's El Nino.
Fallen tree branches, maybe down power lines, power outages, so people need to be aware that this is going to happen and be prepared.
In reality, storms during El Ninos are the same as those of non-El Nino years. The difference is that the storms can be more numerous.
So during past strong El Ninos, we've seen more like a dozen significant storms where we see one or 2 inches of rainfall at the lowest elevations. During a normal year, they may only see 5 or 6 storms.
More numerous storms coupled with high winds equates to lots of coastal damage and erosion. It also equates to saturated soil, which can lead to flooding. Knowing this is beneficial in that we have time to prepare.
So this is the time when we get our sandbags, when we kind of look at our house, what shape our roof is in, our windows, make sure that everything's in tip-top shape. And this is the time to create our ready kit.
That means going to the grocery store and stocking up on enough water, food, and supplies for you, all family members, and pets to last at least 5 days.
Non-perishable food, because if we do have a power outage, that make sure that you're equipped, right, to be prepared for that. Warm clothes, some blankets, closed shoes.
Before the storm is also the time to examine your property to determine where you might need to do some work.
So clean the gutters, the downpipes, anything that might cause some sort of damage, and making sure that our roof is in a good condition too, because there's folks that haven't checked their roof in like decades.
One of the most effective yet overlooked pre-disaster procedures is the creation of a family communication plan.
So having that plan of where you're going to meet, right? If you can't get to your house because there's flooding or whatever, there's a down power line, some down tree branches, how are you going to get from point A to point B, right? So having a place to reunite in your neighborhood and then outside your neighborhood. And then we talk about having an out-of-state contact person, an emergency contact person, and that's important too, so you can communicate, because we don't know if maybe the cell phones might not be working, or any form of communication that we're used to utilizing, it might not be working, and so we have to have those alternatives.
Another tactic of the family communication plan involves taking the road less traveled.
I keep challenging folks when I do training or preparedness talks that they take alternate routes home to and from work, right? And just challenge themselves for when that disaster strikes or those floods come or those strong rains, they actually have ways of getting to and from.
If you are going to drive when the weather's bad, you have to make sure your vehicle can handle it.
Especially the tires, making sure that they're not worn down, because then you end up on a slide.
Something else to consider is safeguarding your important documents.
You might need to evacuate, right? And so you need to have that ready, right? Having your documents. I strongly advise folks to either make copies, hard copies of them, or putting them in a flash drive, or putting them in a cloud somewhere, and just having them stored in a safe place.
And no matter what the disaster is, it's always critical to stay informed.
We need to be aware of what's going on, and it's our job to know if, there's roads that are closed or whatnot, how to get to work, and just being informed, staying tuned on the news, on the radio, and that's also an important part of our kit, because we need to include a hand crank radio or a battery powered radio.
Staying informed also means registering your cell phone number with the reverse 911 system. That's because cell phones are not automatically registered. So if you, like many people, don't have a landline, you won't receive the important information this service provides. Registration is simple and can be done at sbsheriff.org. Finally, the last tip on how to deal with stormy weather may be the easiest.
We strongly advise for folks not to drive unless they absolutely have to in a storm.
You see it a lot back east, where a lot of people are in those flooded areas and they end up sliding off the road or sliding into another vehicle. It's better just to stay home.